my name is Mal. I was asked over on Tumblr, my Tumblr is Magnolia Dye, to do a tutorial showing how I build and landscape quote-unquote hills in The Sims 4. So this is going to be a somewhat speed build, tutorial. I'm going to talk you through my decisions, why I make them, and yeah. So first things first, I usually, if I want, an upper level that I can place stuff on, place, a house or whatever on, I build a room, basically. It's gonna get totally covered up. And I do that first, kind of think through where I want that, what lot I want that on. And it's important to be sure what lot you want to be building on, because once you start placing plants down and you're gonna have to use a lot of the 9 key, you're basically not gonna be able to move this thing. So be sure of your decisions, basically. And then you saw me put the stairs down first. Before starting to put any of the roofs that are going to be our hills down. And this is because stairs cannot intersect with roofs. So having a good idea of where you want those first, so you can kind of work around those, is a good idea in my opinion. And then we just start going at it with a bunch of circular roofs and a few other types too, but mostly the circular roofs. It was really a speed build. I think it was Penelope. I'll link a few other speed builds of some other creators who have done similar things in The Sims 4, which, are inspiring to me. But it was really Penelope's Ponyo build, I want to say, where I first saw somebody do this and was like, whoa. You can really create some cool things. Unfortunately, the major downside of this is the way in which I do it. And there's a few different ways to do this, but basically you will not be able to move it, like I said earlier. Did I say that earlier? I don't know. I am not good at these. So then you saw me kind of make, build a room on top of that room so that I could use some room trim to cover up those still white edges. And then I made just a quick square on top of there just to get kind of an idea of what I want the house on top of this hill to look like, kind of just size-wise, so I can work around that. You kind of have to plan this out, not completely, and you'll see I change a lot of things through this, but having a little bit of an idea of what you want to do before going in is a good idea. And then we just start placing a bunch of plants all over these hills, or roofs rather. Are roofs that are going to pretend that they are hills. And like I said earlier, at the point where you use the 9 key on any of those plants, make sure that you have your build positioned where you want it exactly, because unfortunately, the nature of landscaping items is they all drop. Basically anything that's not technically in a room, when it's downloaded from the gallery, or even if you just use the move lot tool, they will all drop and all your hard work will be for naught. But, if you have an idea of what you've already done, that goes faster, because I have done that many a times. So then, personally, I haven't had great success, or I haven't been happy with using the actual stair railings for these kind of builds. So I usually use, either I flank the stairs by a lot of bushes or something, or in my last build before this one, I used these I don't know what they're technically called, bits of ruins from Get Together. And again, you're just using the 9 key to kind of move them around. I'm personally pretty partial to a kind of, it's gotten taken over by nature look, and it's all kind of, well, ruined. So those work well for me and my personal aesthetic. There's probably a lot of other items that you could use to make a similar aesthetic, but less dilapidated looking, less grown over by nature. But the way in which I do these hills is they tend to have a very nature has taken over look. They're not super manicured. You can get bits if you especially use these wild grass bits that I'm putting here, and like solely use those, maybe a few flowers. You can get a slightly more manicured look, but again, that's not my personal aesthetic. I do like some manicured gardens, but for the most part, I love me some overgrown gardens. I just love gardens in general. That's why I can spend, what did my recorded footage for this end up being? Like 2.5 hours, I think, minus me actually, like, I decorated the house a little bit. That's not included in this because it is primarily supposed to be a, tutorial for how to build hills. So that wanted to be the majority of the footage that I put together. So then to talk about items that you use for this, I've tried to do it a few times not using CC, and it's no fun. Using the items, they're mostly pretty much everything that I'm using here for landscaping the hills and whatnot are liberated items. So they're items, taken from the Cats and Dogs world, Brindleton Bay, taken from Windenburg, and just made, available for you to buy from the menu. And so, they fit in really well with the aesthetics of the game, but they give you a whole bunch more options. And without those options, I think it's really difficult to do this. You've got maybe 4 good plants for doing this, and I don't think you get the kind of depth and dimension that using a lot of different greens basically, I think, help give the build. You'll see, I think, what I mean when we get a little bit further in, but basically it helps create some depth. And then, so what I'm starting to do here is just, outlining a path. Unfortunately, you can't use terrain paint on non-ground levels, which sucks. So, you can paint the floors with the same material as the roofs, and so I tend to do that. I think it blends in a lot better than using the floor plan for the normal floor paints that are supposed to look like grass, but those ones at night they really illuminate, and I'm not a fan of them. So I've taken these tricks of sizing down again those little ruin bits, kind of trying to make it look like there's a bit of a foundation on this house. I've also, at this point, have kind of settled on a color scheme for the house. I want it to be light woods. Those exact woods will change later, but I want it to stand out from, I've chosen at this point that I want it to stand out from all the, the darker greens and whatnot versus, having maybe a darker wood color or even, stone or something. And I think it's important to make those kind of decisions as early on as you can, because it really informs, for me at least, where I put plants, what plants I use. I'll basically, in this build, I gravitate towards all white and yellow flowers on the hills, and it's kind of because I think it looks nice with the lighter tones of the actual house. So again, just still, the doing this takes a lot of patience. For me, I find it very meditative. This is the sort of thing I can spend, waste a good couple hours at a time doing. It's not going to be for everybody, but, hopefully you can give it a shot, make some amazing stuff, hopefully. But yeah, because using that 9 key is a bit of a pain, but yeah. So yeah, again, going in with some lighter bushes. These ones I think are liberated from the Brindleton Bay world, and I tried to use quite a few items that are from Brindleton Bay since this build is located on Dashens Creek, obviously in Brindleton Bay. And yeah, I mean, later on I use the trees from it. I use the flowers that you can see right now at the right of the screen. Those have been liberated. And it was Brazen Lotus. I'll link all these plants in the description box. I think that's how I do it. I don't do YouTube. I don't know what I'm doing. I'll link those all down below, along, like I said, with a few other speed builds of other creators who've done somewhat of a similar thing, using roofs to make hills, basically. And so I cut a little bit of it out because I personally don't find watching terrain painting to be that most of exciting thing, but I did just kind of go around the edges of those roofs and kind of try to make them a little bit more regular and kind of just giving myself a guideline of where I want to put plants later on to kind of spill down from those hills. Yeah, and so then again, these rocks are liberated items. These ones in particular are from Brindleton Bay, again, Brazen Lotus, I think it was, who liberated these, and she did a great job. They're all named, well, they're not just all named Debug, which I personally find a little annoying. It's hard to look for them, at least. But she did a great, I am assuming that they are a she, I don't know that. They did a great job. And especially basically the items I find the most useful are basically those liberated items and then some liberated items from Get Together, from the Windenburg world. Neighborhood, I don't know these things. And so again, here you can kind of see me trying to make different sections. I don't want the same plant covering everything, especially since I am having this be more of, this is just nature happening. It's not somebody, tending to this exterior, this hill. And so I want there to be, sections, I want it to appear natural, basically. And the way in which I think it's easiest rather, to accomplish this is using many different textures, basically, so I have those wild grass, you have those kind of scruffy looking low-lying bushes. Those ones I find super useful. And then the larger, scruffier ones, which there's a few different colorways of that same mesh, I think, basically from Oasis Creek, Brindleton Bay, and Windenburg. So using those three in combination can, again, give you some really good depth. And I also find putting rocks kind of around on the hills gives it a little bit more, maybe, dimension? I don't know. I mean, I make this up as I go along. I don't know what I'm doing. And my computer's about to die. Why am I so bad at it? You also tell that I don't know how to do voiceovers. I haven't done one of these since college. That I just placed down is a base game landscaping item. A few of these, especially that, I forget what it's called. The bright green, that one that I just put down there and then took away. That bright green, again, having a few of those sprinkled around, again, feel like I'm just on repeat, but it does, to me, help to give dimension. And so while a few of these bushes have flowers in them, I basically make sure to get all my green items down first before going back and placing flowers, which I will go back and place a lot of flowers later on. Especially, I do this again off camera. I do build the house a little bit more. You can see at this point, you know, I have settled on using that Tudor framing from Get Together, because I think the brightness of it's a really nice contrast. And in this area, in this world, from my Witches and Wanderers world, I have another house in a very similar style, so that's kind of why I decided to go with somewhat of a similar architecture. It's a teeny tiny house, barely fit anything in it, but I mean, at this, I was barely able to get this footage down to 25 minutes without it being nauseatingly fast or me having to cut out pretty much everything, which I guess I could have cut out more, but I don't know how to really do that. I mean, I did cut out a lot and, you know, speed up some parts differently. I am not talking about the build right now, but what if I am just kind of repeating myself over and over? What else can I say? Looking at example pictures online, I think, is also pretty helpful, even if they're not necessarily, you know, you're going to use it as a reference for this exact build that you're working on. Just getting an idea of how nature kind of works. I mean, this is not how nature works. This is how nature works in The Sims 4. But getting a little bit of an idea of, how stuff kind of works in the real world will help your build be more balanced. Yeah, let's say that. Balanced, sure. And here, I kept a teeny bit of me working on the actual house in here. I thought this part was nice because I'm obsessed with these garlands from the Plumbob Tea Society's recent Rustic Romance pack. Obsessed. They light up at night and they're gorgeous. Same with that wreath in there. And then those plants that I layered over the base game planters, which those are recolors of another base game planter, but they did such a good job. They're gorgeous. So gorgeous. And yeah, again, putting, you know, I mean, since this is, you know, kind of a build where nature has taken over, I thought it was a good idea to have some elements of nature on the actual house itself. So I mean, I'm just a sucker for vine-covered houses, so I have a huge Pinterest board of them. I would love to live in one someday. Yeah, now getting some, you know, landscaping elements on the actual, how do I call this? The actual upper level? Sure. The upper level, the actual top of the hill? Sure. Sure, that's what we'll call that. And then starting to get some trees down. I like to wait, you know, a good bit until I start placing trees, and some of these will change, especially, just the tree on the right. That one will change later. Thought it was a better idea to have, you know, another one from the Brindleton Bay world to help it blend in better with the surrounding landscapes. But, you know, so I like to wait until I've basically placed all the plants on, or the green plants on the hills, then do the trees, then do the flowers. And to me, you know, I mean, a little bit of it goes back and forth. You know, I'll add some other green plants back in. I'll shift where the trees are a little bit. So it's not, you know, rigid, which is partially why I found this very difficult for me to write a tutorial on this, and just recording myself building one was easier because I don't take very rigid steps. I am very much a builder that I go back and forth between things. I have to really, zoom my camera out, look from my build in a lot of different angles. Am I happy with this? Does it look balanced? And this one, I'm not actually super happy with it. It still does feel a little unbalanced to me at the very end of this. I think changing the tree on the right from, what is that, an elm tree, to the flowering tree from Brindleton Bay does help give it a little bit more balance. And you only see that at the end. I think I changed that off camera at the end. But yeah, so that's why I chose, even though I don't know how to do videos, that might be an easier way of making a tutorial. And yeah, we're slowly coming up on the end here. Again, just placing flowers, trying to make those look like they're kind of growing up a path, doing a little bit more terrain painting to kind of make this look like it's sitting into the world. Trying to kind of use similar, I wish I could do the terrain painting that Maxis EA did around here, though some of those, I don't know exactly how they did that. I think they did that with tools that we don't have. I don't know. It annoys me. I wish I could make my terrain paint look as good and as fluid? Fluid, is that the best way to describe that? I don't know. Again, placing more flowers, kind of trying to make those look like they're growing up the side rather than just being, little clumps at the bottom and stuff. And using, those are the plants I was talking about earlier. Those are liberated from, as you can see, the little icon on the item that I'm grabbing from. Those are wildflower number 2, I believe, from Brindleton Bay. And they're gorgeous. Such nice colors on them. And yeah, how do I keep talking about this? I have such a renewed respect, I have to say, for YouTube and Twitch creators for The Sims 4. How do you keep talking over these and keeping it relevant? I guess a lot of them don't keep it necessarily relevant, but this is supposed to be a tutorial. I should be. These are another flower that I'm placing a lot here. Those are liberated flowers from Windenburg, I think. Yeah, from Get Together. They're really nice and delicate. They're almost like if you size down I think it's the Oops-a-Daisy. And then here I'm looking at it in live mode. I think I only recorded myself switching into live mode once. But I think it's a good idea to switch into it every now and then, get an idea of how it's actually looking in the world without that little white box sitting around. Yeah, and then putting, a few bits at the edges of the lot to kind of try and break it up. And yeah, we're coming to the end here. Do I have any other tips? Just be patient. It's gonna take a while. This took me, like I said, about 3 hours to do, give or take. Not including the house, really, or maybe including a little bit of the house. I only recorded a little bit of that and edited most of it out. But yeah, and it's playable for the most part. There might be a few things that you have to shift. I haven't play tested this particular lot. But knowing how I've built the ones in the past, it should be a-okay. Not that, again, I can upload this, really. Because if you were to download this, it wouldn't look remotely like this, which is why I am recording this. And here we go. There it is. See, I changed that tree on the right. I think it looks better. Thank you for listening, and I will put some links, relevant links, in the bottom description box, whatever that's called. Thank you. Bye.